All right, we are rolling. Marvin Haberland, welcome back to the Terrain Theory Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, as promised, we have some unfinished business to attend to, and so I thought we'd just start right off with a provocative question. Marvin, do vitamins exist?
Yeah, that's a big question. At least as big as the virus question, I would say. I would right from the beginning start to say that the hypothesis or the call that something exists is like a positive claim, right? So somebody who introduces this hypothesis has the burden of proof, and has to demonstrate or prove the existence of something. So if you analyze what has been brought forward as proof, you can come to the conclusion, similar to virology and viruses, that the proof is not very convincing for the existence of vitamins and also molecules. We can come to this as well. Most likely, these hypotheses, viruses and vitamins, were introduced in the 19th, 20th century to explain what has been observed in certain studies or in certain observations, and serve as models basically, but themselves they have never been proven to exist specifically, which doesn't mean that they could technically exist, but we don't have a proof for their existence. At least this is our current stand in this area.
Well, if we're looking and investigating virology, we can examine the methods used in a viral isolation experiment and quickly determine or conclude there is no independent variable. And then using control experiments that exist now, we can say that their observations that they felt proved the existence of the virus in the sample, meaning the breakdown of the cell, also occur in control studies, and therefore it invalidates those two things. Greatly invalidate virology. What is it about the discovery of vitamins, the isolation of vitamins, that you call into question? What specific methodology used are you questioning?
Yeah, first I would say again to the virology. I think the most important one is actually the transmission experiment. Before before falsifying the laboratory methods, you can falsify virology by the experimental design of transmission experiments, which don't work in a controlled fashion. So this is first, and then the cell culture, and then the genome sequencing can be debunked as well. For vitamins, it's actually pretty similar. If you make experiments with, or if you check the studies that have been done on vitamins, for instance, on scurvy, beginning of the 20th century, vitamin C deficiency scurvy. So people always, observed these symptoms, especially or specifically in sailors' men's on the ships, and when they were on missions for several months, they sometimes developed symptoms of scurvy. For instance, bleeding teeth, or other sort of symptoms, skin issues, and what was observed is that if they eat something fresh, for instance, potatoes or meat or any sort of fresh food, even oranges or citrus fruits, these symptoms went away very, very quickly. However, if they ate the conserved food, like heavy salted foods or conserved foods, canned foods, and so on, they they develop these symptoms. And from this observation, there was the hypothesis that maybe in the food there is some structure that gets damaged, for instance, in the conservation process. However, in the experiments that followed after, there were big methodology problems. For instance, I can cite one study. It's called experimental scurvy in man. It's from the 1960s, and this was carried out in a prison with prisoners, and they got like artificial food for several hundred days, liquid food directly into the stomach, and some after some 100 days, some of them developed scurvy. First and foremost, there were only like 4 or 5 people in the trial, so it's not very good statistically, but let's go from that. Then, after they developed these symptoms, some of them, they changed the whole diet into a solid food diet, even containing eggs and so on, and added the ascorbic acid, which is the vitamin C, the other name for it. And from this point on, the symptoms went away. But you changed two big variables. You changed the food, which previously was liquid and artificial, to a solid food, and you introduced the ascorbic acid. So you cannot draw from this the conclusion that the ascorbic acid was the determining factor. And this study is completely, meaningless or scientifically not able to demonstrate this cause and effect relation. And many other studies follow the same methodologic problems. And this is one thing that you can see in the studies. The second thing is that actually, when it comes to isolating the vitamins, this is something that is carried out in a very chemical process with a lot of extraction processes, adding a lot of solvents, for instance, hexane and other chemicals multiple times all over again, and adding high temperatures, centrifuging, and so on. And then what is left over is called a vitamin, similar to, actually is extremely similar to virology, the steps and the way of thinking. And the problem is, after you have this so-called vitamin left over, you cannot really demonstrate that it has a healthy effect. If you take this powder or this liquid and you try to add it into an experiment, you are not observing any major significant health implications or advantages. What you cannot really demonstrate that. So the only thing you can demonstrate is in a independent machine. Let's call it like that. In a machine that analyzes substances, called in HPLC, is the is a modern laboratory method, and you can see that the substance has similar spikes at the same locations than, for instance, human tissue or blood. And this is enough for many scientists to draw the conclusion, yeah, these must be specific vitamins. But first of all, this is only indirect proof, because a spike can mean everything or nothing. You cannot really prove that there is a specific structure. Nobody has ever shown a vitamin as a structure or a molecule. All of these pictures are generated, so it's just a hypothesis, a concept. Yeah.
When they go through the process of reducing down to the vitamin molecule, or what they say is the vitamin molecule, what are they starting with?
Yeah, they start usually with what a source that they think the vitamin is in. For instance, milk or any sort of food, or fruits, meat, whatever. And then they use many chemicals, as I just explained, hexane and others, and filtration to get the liquid out of all these substances. And then what they call an isolation assay. And then they have this liquid, which they say it's highly concentrated pure vitamins, and they add it in the HPLC, Hochleistungschromatographie in German, like I think chromography in English, not sure the exact English name. And then from there they claim that there are vitamins in this substance. But again, in the real experiment, you cannot prove any health benefits. I'm not aware of any randomized trials or any other experiments that really prove just by adding the substance that you have a health advantage. Yeah.
So these would be like randomized control human trials where you have two groups and one is getting pure, say, vitamin C or pure isolated vitamin D, and then you determine the health outcomes of both. That's the only difference. One is getting it, one is not, and then we determine health outcomes and draw some sort of conclusion. You're saying that you're not aware of any studies that definitively prove health benefits of taking the pure vitamin.
Right, that's correct. Most of the studies that are very well designed come to the conclusion that there are no differences, specifically for the so-called hard clinical endpoints, which is total mortality, all-cause mortality, also called sometimes, and other real symptoms. Sometimes they see differences in biomarkers or blood surrogate markers, but this is not proof for a real clinical endpoint. So I just observe or just check the hard clinical endpoints, and I cannot see any differences, statistically meaningful differences in the overarching randomized control trial studies. And what has been done to prove so-called vitamins many times is some similar experiments that I just mentioned. You feed animals or humans for many extended periods of time a liquid artificial diet. Then there are symptoms, and then you change the diet and introduce a vitamin and claim that the vitamin has saved or has improved the symptoms. So this is not very good proof. And of course, there are some studies also that try to assess the vitamin content of food that has been, for example, heated versus the raw food. And they come to the conclusion that yes, in the heated food, there is less of what in the HPLC system is analyzed as vitamin content. But again, this is just indirect measurements or proofs. We don't know what exactly this is. We can make an hypothesis, but in the end, if in the experiment we cannot really replicate that or prove that these isolated structures exist and have health benefits, then it's a good hypothesis, like in virology, but experimentally you cannot really prove it. So that's the problem.
What is the isolate? What do you suppose that isolate is? If it's not a vitamin that they're reducing this thing down to, what is it? It's got to be something.
Yeah, it's just asking somebody who makes a fire out of wood, and in the end you get a black ash. Is it called ash in English?
Yeah, ash.
Ash, yeah. And you ask, okay, what is this? Is this ash or is this a vitamin? Yeah, okay. It's you can make the hypothesis that there are vitamins inside the ash, but in the end, what remains, it's just the remaining after a process. And the same in the lab. If you take food and heat it up, mix it with solvents and hexane and filtrate it, and running in centrifuges and so on and so forth many times over again, then what remains in the end is just the remains of these experiments. But it's not proof that there is a vitamin or some structure that is essential to human life and to animal life, because this is the definition of vitamin. The definition of vitamin is that it is a life essential substance that cannot be developed by the body itself. It has to be brought in from the outside. So this is the definition. And just by having this remaining fluid in the end or powder, it's not enough to prove that this is some vitamin, essential vitamin. So I would say, what is this? Yeah, this is just what remains after these kind of processes. The fact that in the HPLC high performance chromatography, maybe in English, is that you have similar uh, peaks at the same locations, similar to a DNA profile, which is not a proof of anything. So it's not a proof that it is specific, because you could have different samples that cause these spikes at exactly the same locations from totally different sources. And yeah, is indirect proof. Indirect proof is always good if you have a gold standard. Okay, if you have a gold standard and can validate indirect methods with a gold standard, then you can use these methods as surrogates. Okay, but if you don't have a gold standard, just using this method is a problem.
Marvin, just to flash back to the very beginning of our conversation when Ben posed the questions, is there proof of vitamins? Which you refuted. You also said there's no real proof of molecules, if I'm not mistaken. Could you go into that for the listener a little bit as well?
Yeah, so vitamins, and also proteins, carbohydrates, amino acids, fatty acids, all of these organic structures are in the category of molecules. So molecule is the category, and these are all claim to be molecules, and molecules are like chemical structures and connections of atoms. This is the definition, and the problem is that this is a model, like a concept, not even a real model, because a real model has to represent reality. This is for us, this is the definition of a model. It has to represent reality. It's a 3D, at least a 2D representation of reality. But if you cannot be sure that it is a representation of reality, because you cannot really see what you want to represent, then it's just a concept, yeah, or a thought model. So this is very important to make this distinction. And molecules have never been observed directly, because of obviously they are too small, or they are thought to be too small. If you use very modern techniques like cryo electro tomography or electron microscopy, then you can see certain structures. But first of all, they are never taken out directly of living beings. It's always what you see after several steps in the lab. Then, like similar to virology, then the method itself is not a direct method, like an optical method. It's a method where you have high amounts of electricity that go through a sample. In order for this electric currents to work, you need to prepare the sample. You need to steam it with powder, and you need to increase the conductivity of this material, and stain the material. This is the correct term. And the problem here is that it can cause many artifacts that have not been there before. So what you really see in the electron microscope has to be interpreted very carefully, and cannot be interpreted as causative picture of real structures. And very important also, if you do a control experiment with similar steps in the lab, you can see the same structures, no matter if it's like a vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, whatever is being claimed as a vitamin. If you use the exact same steps in the lab, you cannot really distinguish them. It's not that you see the molecules like four of these atoms, five of these atoms connected in that way. No, this cannot be seen, never. This is just a generated image. Also, if you search on Google vitamin A molecule, vitamin C molecule, what you will see always is just a computer generated image of a molecule. You will never see a real picture of it, or not even an electron micrograph picture. So we definitely don't have proof of the existence, because to exist means to have a certain location and to have a certain form, like a form factor. And both of these traits have not been proven for vitamins or for viruses. This makes it very difficult to talk about it as if they were if they exist. We cannot say they do not exist, because you cannot prove that something doesn't exist, obviously. But you can say that the proof that has been brought forward is not enough for a convincing proof of a specific structure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This keeps coming up in our conversations, where as soon as man strives to bring something into the lab, an awful lot of assumptions become dogma, and we just assume that because we have quote unquote seen it in the lab that it's real. But what you're saying is, and it goes right back to your example of the pirates eating the stored food versus the fresh food, is that the for lack of a better term, the life force is the thing that we keep trying to put into a bottle and say that we can encapsulate, but you really can't. It's kind of it's more mysterious than that.
Yeah, it's mysterious is the correct term. I mean, this is our motivation as humans to discover and understand the mystery of nature, and this is what drives the scientific motivation. But we have to be very careful when using or when carrying out experiments. We always have to understand that the experiment itself is already a high degree of influence on a natural process, and we have to calculate in, or we have to we have to be very careful that our experimental design can already cause certain effects. And if we do not control these experimental designs very, very rigorously and carefully, we have a high risk of wrong interpretations of our results. And for the vitamins, you can see it. The hypothesis is extremely good that there are specific vitamins in food. Extremely good hypothesis, like in the virology, that there are pathogenic viruses. Both are excellent hypotheses, excellent. But if you test them in the experiment, they do not work. Okay, for the viruses, it doesn't work in the contagion experiments. For the vitamins, it does not work in the nutritional experiments. This is the problem. So the experiment falsifies the hypothesis, which doesn't mean that they do not exist, but it means that what we think are vitamins or what we think are virus isolates, they are not. At least they do not work as the claimed properties. So this is the problem. Yeah.
Marvin, if vitamins have never been proven to exist, what's in the pills that people are taking? People are taking vitamin D, people are taking vitamin C, they're taking multivitamins. What are they putting in their body?
Yeah, this is a very, very good question, and also leads to maybe a better understanding of how this whole vitamin theory developed, specifically starting from the beginning of the 20th century. So actually, Casimir Funk, 1912, I think was his paper. Casimir Funk was the first scientist who really brought out a big paper, claiming that most of the diseases at those times, like scurvy, beriberi, and many others, pellagra, were caused by nutritional deficiencies or missing vitamins. And from this point on, a big industry developed selling those vitamins. And actually, what vitamins are, most of the time, are waste products from industrial processes. People should really understand this. Similar to other drugs that also are highly derived from the petrol oil industry or other waste products from other industries, vitamins are oftentimes, 99% of the time, are some waste products out of industrial processes. For instance, out of for instance, also the whey protein powder or other protein powders are also just waste products out of the nutritional industry, specifically for the whey protein out of the cheese production, the whey that remains there. Nobody can use it. Nobody has meaning for it. It's the total waste product. And they have come up with an idea to make money out of the waste, like many industries do, which is a good concept, business concept, of course, very good. But in terms of our health, it's not really meaningful and sometimes even detrimental, or can cause a certain strain and burden on the body. We can maybe talk about this later. But what are vitamins, pills? What do the people take? If you want to say it a little bit provocative, it's a waste product out of an industrial process most of the time. Of course, there are some companies that claim to have only vitamins that come out of natural food or natural plants, whatever. But most of the time, these are again waste. Leftovers, which is not necessarily a bad argument. It could be leftover food and still have the good vitamins, but the chemical process is always there. The hexane, the centrifugation, the high temperatures, the other chemicals that are the hydrochloric acid, the many other chemicals. I just named 2 or 3, but they are like many. And then, of course, the additional components that are added in the pills. I'm not. I cannot recommend to anybody to take a supplement, no matter if it's vitamin D or vitamin A, multivitamin complex, vitamin B. It's a problem. And actually, I talked about this in our last interview. Many of these substances are quite toxic. They have very interesting toxicological profiles. For instance, vitamin D, cholecalciferol, is one of the strongest rodent toxins in studies. And vitamin A has a high degree of toxicity. Okay, you can look it up. Vitamin A toxicity. Where does it come from? Only from vitamin A supplementation. There is no recorded case of somebody or an animal in a study eating too much liver and getting these kind of symptoms. They only occur from these chemical substances, which are called vitamins. However, the real food never causes these problems. This is another falsification of the vitamin hypothesis. Only the artificial vitamins cause toxicological reactions, not the real food.
That's that in and of itself is fascinating. No one gets sick from vitamin A overdose by eating too much liver.
No, it's impossible.
Yeah.
There's not one controlled experiment, not one, where you show that you give liver to rats or humans, cats, doesn't matter, and they develop vitamin A toxicity. Not one recorded experiment in the whole literature. And the same is true for other very toxic substances. For instance, vitamin D. There is not one recorded case of an experiment where you eat a lot of whatever egg yolks or other fatty fish, or for even for sun exposure, that create the same symptoms that are called vitamin D toxicity symptoms. Only via vitamin D supplementation you get these symptoms from. Same is true for vitamin E, which is also quite toxic in studies, actually one of the most toxic. And also other compounds that are not classified as vitamins, but more plant pigments, okay, like beta carotene, for example. They can also cause quite a lot of health issues. So this is and then many people ask, okay, but there are effects if I take vitamins or vitamin B12 or some other vitamins, some other substances. I can feel more energy. Yeah? I feel energetic. So there are 2 answers for this, or 3. One is this is actually a real vitamin. It works. Second one is this is a substance causing a certain stress and strain on the body. The body reacts with higher heartbeat and with, like with coffee,
Yeah.
because it identifies the substance as toxic. And third is the placebo effect. So these are the 3 possibilities. And the first one we already ruled out we cannot really call it a real vitamin because it does not really work in the. If you take an experiment and try to prove that the animals that take this substance have better health outcomes, they do not. So this is the problem. What you can prove is that the heartbeat goes up, or you feel more awake, energetic. But this is not necessarily a hard clinical endpoint. This can be caused by any drug or any other substance. It's not an advantage. If at all, it's a disadvantage. Okay, because you age quicker if the heartbeat goes up, and if you are more energetic, it's just a proof that you are aging quicker. Yeah. So yeah.
Wild. While we're on this subject, so Dr. Tom Cowan, who's like a professional medical dissident and beloved by myself and Ben and probably you, Marvin. I mean, we're all very close with Tom and listen to him, and he's really a North Star in this space. But even on his website, and I've purchased this product, liposomal vitamin C, and I know that we're all sort of along this path of sort of unearthing different dogmas and challenging them. But I'm just looking at it right now. It says our liposomal vitamin C is naturally crafted with only 4 ultra premium ingredients, the world's only source of non-Chinese, non-corn, non-GMO ascorbic acid, deuterium depleted distilled water, organic sunflower lecithin, and organic spagyric tincture of lemon peel, certified organic 95% cane spirits, certified organic lemon peel, and spagyric mineral matrix. Now, right away, in my sort of neophyte understanding of all this, I see the word spagyric mineral, which makes me think of cell salts, tissue salts, and I know that that's a whole other conversation when you get into minerals versus vitamins. But do you think this isn't long for Tom's shop, this liposomal vitamin C, or is there something inherently different because it's quote unquote liposomal? What do you make of this?
Yeah. So first of all, I would be open-minded to every substance that is claimed to have some benefits. And if I see a real benefit, for instance, in a study, or even if there is not a study, if I have conclusive evidence from people taking that and living longer than other people, or having significant improved health or whatever, then that can also be approved. But for the vitamins and also for this one, I don't know these cases, and I don't know the studies proving the health improvements. And as you could see in the ingredients list, peel of a fruit is not really a waste product, because people really cannot eat that. Not even plant eaters like herbivores eat a lot of peels. I mean, some monkeys even take it off if they eat the fruit, because it's just very, very impossible to digest. Basically, it's so hard to digest the peels of plants. And quite honestly, many peels even have a toxicological profiles, because they have to protect the plant. And it's not human food. This is what I want to say. Okay, if you extract something out of something that is not human food by design, by nature, the question comes up to me. Okay, why are we doing this in the first place? And is it logical? Okay, but this is just one question. The second question is, theoretically, there could be vitamins inside the peel. Why not? And then if we take this peel and construct this vitamin, first of all, how many years is this storable in the shelf? I guess 2 years or more. That means that there is no life energy inside it, because everything that has a certain amount of life energy is, or let's say, life energy that can be digested and used actually by animals, is fermented away in some days. Okay, the bacteria will immediately start to eat it. And if microorganisms cannot eat something, there's a very good indication that something is dead, or something is not really there is no energy, life force in this substance. But this is just these are just conceptual answers now. If we want to prove that this supplement works or that it really improves the health, I would just be curious to see a study or people that really demonstrate this, and I would be open to discuss this. But so far, I don't have this knowledge or this observational data, so I cannot. For me, this remains an hypothesis for the moment. And liposomal is just a very flashy name for a certain chemical process that claims that something has a different structure and is encapsulated in a different structure. So yeah, it's I guess just that Tom has not really looked into this topic, because in order to look into a topic that you have been taught from childhood on,
Right.
you need to have a certain motivation to do that. Otherwise, you will just take it for granted, like with virology. So usually you have to see problems in the papers if you read them, or you have to have some other people telling you, oh, check it out. There might be an issue here. Have you read the studies yourself? Have you investigated everything? Have you checked all the methodologies used? And I guess most people have done that for virology in our small community, but almost nobody has done that for vitamins. Actually, we are the first ones, I would say, that do that. And I see higher degree of similarities. For me, actually, virology and viruses and vitamins are almost the same when it comes to how is the hypothesis developed, how is the hypothesis tested, and how are the conclusions drawn. It's almost identical. And also the method used are very similar. So it should be very easy for people with the knowledge in the virology also to apply it to vitamins.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that you need a strong motivation. I would say that exists a strong motivation not to investigate something like vitamins. The supplement industry is almost $200 billion worldwide, and when you get into alternative health and you no longer prescribe pharmaceuticals, what you end up having to prescribe in order to make money, in order to pay back the debt that you took on to go to naturopathic school or alternative health school, you have to prescribe supplements. I mean, this is so widespread, it's almost laughable that when you go into a naturopath's office, they claim that they're going to help you heal naturally, but you just end up paying $500 a month in supplements of some sort. And I think that gets into this conversation, um, transitioning from just vitamins, these 13 essential vitamins that are also taken in multivitamin form or singularly, like vitamin D, vitamin C, all the B complexes, into this broader sort of supplement industry and the problems that exist there. And I wonder what general conclusions have you drawn when you step back, Marvin, and look at the broader supplement industry?
Yeah, that's very important because many people's in the alternative area that try to find the truth or seek truth, um, have fallen for this industry that claims to be something alternative, something natural. But if you actually look into how vitamins are actually processed and produced, it's almost the same as drugs. And the big companies that sell the raw materials for the vitamin production are the same as the drug companies, basically Pfizer and so on. These are the big pharmaceutical companies that sell BASF, Bayer, and so on. Monsanto also. They sell the same raw materials for the vitamins. So yeah, they are just marketed differently. So people see them as something natural, but in reality, these are just chemical components. And yeah, I would be very I would be very careful with this and look into that. And what I see, looking on this from a broader perspective, is that it's just another way to sell to people that it is very easy to be healthy just by taking a pill. It's very easy. And the advantage is it's not a pharmaceutical drug, it's a vitamin. So no side effects, it's completely natural. So this is a strong argument in most people's mind, and they take these pills. And for me, this is a deception of the reality, because what the people should be recommended instead is what we talked about last time: to eat proper food for humans that can be digested, that humans would eat in nature, and so on and so forth, and not trying to improve health by taking a pill. So this is a very, very dangerous deception, and even more dangerous, I would say, than in drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, because the pharmaceutical drugs, almost everyone knows that they are not very healthy, or that you have to be careful with them. But with vitamins, everyone thinks, oh, these are natural compounds, and they are healthy for me. So this is even more dangerous, I would say.
So are there any supplements out there that could have some benefit? I mean, I think the cod liver oil you see, like fish oils, these appear to be derived from a more natural food, but I mean, something like even creatine. I see so much information around creatine, and you see people wanting to take this to help support their bodies. So many studies on creatine showing its safety and efficacy. I mean, are there any supplements out there that you would recommend, or are they just all off the table?
No, of course you can take a natural substance and try to, convert it into a liquid or into a powder. That powder is basically already quite damaging, but into a liquid, for instance, with cod liver oil, unless it's not pasteurized and fresh, it's a good source of food, of course, and can be digested, without any issues. People in the 1930s used a lot of cod liver oil to heal rickets and other problems with small children. And the difference is the cod liver oil those days was fresh, and the cod liver oil today, which you buy in the food or on Amazon and other stores, is highly pasteurized, many 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And is you can hold it in the shelf for quite a long time. And again, pasteurization is, as we know from studies, is an issue for life force or for food. It not necessarily destroys vitamins, what has been thought until today, but it actually increases the toxicity, at the burden, the strain on the body, and at the same time it reduces what you can digest, so the digestibility is reduced. And these are the two only conclusions that can be drawn from pasteurization. That vitamins are destroyed, this is an hypothesis that we cannot prove, but we can prove that it caused disease. This we can prove for sure. And we can prove that the digestion is reduced if you heat up meat, for instance. And coming to creatine, you are right. There are many good studies that show that strength or volume goes up, but this is not necessarily a health benefit. This is a benefit for people that want to go to the gym and increase the muscular mass. But talking about health means, to stay healthy means not having symptoms and having long lifespan. Of course, this is the primary definition of health: how long you live and how healthy you live. And having big muscles or more strength is not necessarily a sign of health. It's can be also done by very unhealthy procedures. For instance, going to the gym regularly is increasing the strain on the body, and the body has to adapt to this burden, which reduces its lifespan. This is the cost that you have to pay, and on the other side, you increase the energy output on the muscle size and the strength. But also the creatine is other than that, okay, it serves to retain water in the muscle and the body. And this is if you understand biology, this is a very, very, very good proof that it is quite toxic. Okay, because whenever you eat salt, for example, or some toxic foods, your thirst goes up immediately. The body needs to neutralize the blood and everything that the equilibrium needs to be neutralized again, and therefore you have a lot of thirst, and then you flush it out, okay, through the kidneys and so on. And the same is true for creatine. If you take a lot of creatine, you are more thirsty, and the water is retained in the body. And whenever there is fat and water in the body at higher degrees than natural, it means that the body has to neutralize toxicity and adapt to a strain. This is the only cause why somebody gets obese. And being obese can be also with water, with muscles, and with fat. Obesity just means higher weight. And no natural body, no natural animal would increase this amount of weight naturally. It's just because of certain burden or strain on the body. And I would argue that creatine is not a healthy substance. It can help to increase mass and water retention and so on, and strength, but it does not mean that it is a healthy substance.
Yeah, that's a good point and a great clarification. Marvin, what about the essential minerals, calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, magnesium, especially? People talk a lot about magnesium and supplement with magnesium.
Yeah, this is a little bit different because with minerals, like magnesium or zinc, copper, and so on, gold, silver, all these kind of substances, we can really see them. They exist in nature. We can clearly isolate them, and we can clearly see and touch them and isolate them and so on in higher degree and very accurately. And we have this direct observation, and because we have this direct observation, our methods in the lab to analyze gold, silver are very, very precise and can be validated. This is the difference to the vitamins and the viruses, where we cannot validate it. And therefore, this is a different topic. However, I want to point out a very, very important topic. Just because we can take a fish, for example, like a tuna fish, and centrifuge the fish in the lab and getting mercury or another, let's say, iron out of this fish, doesn't mean that this substance is the same substance as in the real fish in the end. Just by eating this extracted iron doesn't mean that it works in the same way as if we just ate the whole fish, because it seems to be that certain structures only work together as food, as real food. However, if you try to chemically render this substance or isolate certain substance, it seems that the so-called bioavailability or the health implications are not longer there, and this might be true also for minerals. However, this is a quite different topic. Yeah.
So do you feel, though, I mean, you would have explored, or I wonder, have you done explorations into studies showing, for example, benefits of magnesium on its own? Right, magnesium's a big one. People take magnesium for a number of reasons.
Yes.
There's a number
Yeah.
of different variations on magnesium. People take it for
Yeah.
sleeping in particular. But have you come across valid studies, randomized placebo control trials using magnesium alone as a mineral that we can identify and isolate, therefore does exist?
Yes. So I mean, I want to make sure the structure exists, magnesium, like the vitamin structure that we call vitamin C exists as well. I mean, we can buy the ascorbic acid; it exists, but claiming that it is made out of certain molecules or atoms, this is the concept. Okay, this I want to clarify. The magnesium powder or supplement, of course, it exists, and yes, there are studies showing that certain issues like cramps or sleep and so on can be improved, but the evidence is not very conclusive in the sense that it can be reproduced in any trial. Some trials find no difference, so yeah, it's not a very high degree of evidence, I would say, but it works. I mean, many people use it quite successfully, and again, I would say these substances can help, but first of all, you have to ask the questions: how are these people eating? Are they eating naturally or not? Second, because if they were eating naturally, they wouldn't have these symptoms in the first place, most likely. Then this magnesium supplement would just be like a drug. It would mask symptoms, or would just improve the symptom, but would not really. If you stop to take it, the symptoms would come back, which means that you have not really investigated the root cause. You have not worked on the root cause, and we want to point out that this is more important. People need to work out what is the root cause of the symptom. And yes, I can take substances that have a certain effect on the body, but again, it doesn't mean that they are healthy for me. Only because I have improved muscle cramps, or I can sleep better, is not necessarily a proof that this substance will significantly improve hard clinical endpoints and all-cause mortality and so on. Yeah, but for several symptoms, of course, you can drink alcohol if you have a high, pain, or you can take a pain relief. It doesn't mean that it is healthy.
That's a good point.
So yeah, this is always very critical question someone has to ask. Yeah, I would say. And another very good example, I want to point out that many articles in the internet, many studies, many experts say that you shouldn't eat deep water fish because of the mercury and so on. Because it appears in laboratory experiments that these fish, if you extract the mercury out by ultracentrifugation or mass spectrography, you can see that they have a slightly higher mercury amounts than other animals do. But naturally, not because the fish is toxic or because we in aquacultures. No, the wild caught fish has also the higher mercury, so it's just part of the fish. Now, the important part: if you eat the mercury in this isolated form, it's very toxic, or it can be very toxic. However, if you eat the same amount of fish that would be the equivalent of this amount of mercury, you have never any symptoms. There's no recorded experiment of eating wild caught, tuna and having mercury symptoms. Again, we cannot draw this conclusion because the real experiment does not show that. Just the extracted mercury, the isolated one, has the toxic effect. And here there are two reasons for this. First of all, within the extraction process itself, the isolation process, it can be that the mercury, how do I say it in English? It can be that the mercury just was created in this process, in this extraction process, that in the real fish, in the real animal, this structure is not there in this form. It has a total different structure. This is one hypothesis. The second one is that the structure is exactly the same. It didn't change, but in the fish and the overall compound, it is not toxic, just in the isolated form. So these are two hypotheses that we point out. If people ask us, oh yeah, but you can isolate this and find it in the fish as well in the exact same form. But yeah, first of all, you have to perform the steps to see it in the fish as well. So you cannot really prove it without touching the fish and going through all these steps. And if you eat the fish, you don't have this toxicity. So yeah, this is this is what it comes back to experimental design and logical thinking, basically.
The narrative I think that we've been served is that there's mercury in the fish because of pollution.
Exactly,
But
exactly. And this is not true.
are you challenging that and saying that there's whatever this quote unquote mercury is in the fish is naturally occurring? It's there.
Absolutely naturally. Yeah, we know that from fish that were caught in the middle of the oceans, wild caught, spearfish, tuna, whatever. They have some deep water fishes, or not only fishes, or other even plants, algae, deep water plants. Well, algae are not a plant, but you know what I mean. They also might have higher mercury compounds naturally.
Yeah.
Okay, there is no, yeah, you can claim that it is because of pollution, but again, it's just an hypothesis that you would need to prove. You would need to replicate this in an experiment and prove that these fish have higher mercury because there is a certain pollutant added in the water or whatever. And from these wild caught fish, seeing those higher elevated levels, for me, is not a good proof that it is a problem or that it came from pollution. And even if it came from pollution, we don't have controlled experiments showing that this is in any way unhealthy. If at all, it's one of the healthiest foods. So
Right.
yeah, this is again, if there is no proof that these fish cause any sort of, if eaten raw, cause any health problems, there is
That
no argument here.
That's remarkable. We had Steve Falconer on. It's been a couple years now, but he talked about esoteric biochemistry and the salts of salvation, as George Carey called them, the mineral salts. And Ben and I really kind of pushed back on him, thinking that why would you take these salts in an extracted form, like you were to use your term, when you could just find these things in your food? And we got into a conversation about, well, the nutrient density has been depleted in
Hmm.
our food supply such that we need to look for them in extracted form. But it's just like the last conversation we had with you, and in today's conversation about life force and the symbiosis that occurs when you eat a living food, that seems to be where the magic is. And then when we start tinkering and getting into the lab and extracting, and I mean, I love talking about mineral salts and I take them and I like the study of esoteric biochemistry. I find it fascinating, but I just don't think you can beat a whole food in its true living sense. Like you talked about your diet last time, how you eat a lot of, most of your diet is raw and it's living. It's as close to its living state as you can find it. And that seems to be, I think, where the prize lies.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the food itself is a mystery, but it can also be very simple, like we discussed last time. If you can eat something naturally, like your instincts tells you, if you observe small children and you give them salt, they will not eat. Sometimes they might take it and spit it out immediately. Most of them will not even try with salt. With raw meat, they will eat it. With leaves, raw leaves, no, they will not eat it. So it's very easy to find out what is a specific species-specific food for humans just by observing small children that were not indoctrinated, just by following their instincts, like every other animal. And with salt, I want to say that salt is quite toxic. I mean, if you swallow the seawater, you know how bad it is. And if you take a teaspoon, like a little teaspoon of salt in your mouth, you would not even want to swallow it. Impossible. It's so toxic, it's so dangerous for the body that you immediately spit it out. If you try to eat salt like directly, it causes very very drastic symptoms, diarrhea and vomiting and nausea and so on. So yeah, we can take very very small grains of salt and put them over our food. So, but we basically trick our body, our senses, because the dosage is too small. But yeah, salt in itself is a quite toxic substance, and yeah, you can kill. I mean, the LD50, which is the lethal dose, where 50% of the population in an experiment die for salt, is quite high. So it's Even seawater animals avoid drinking seawater and salt, eating salt, like whales, and there are many studies on these aquatic animals, how they avoid. They were also killed by salt, so they are also salt is also toxic for them. So they are specifically designed to live in salt water, but they do not absorb the salt into the body. They have a very rigorous barrier between the water and their own tissue, so that the salt is not entering. Okay, so yeah, I would be careful with salt. I know that there is a big community, specifically in the carnivore community, so-called carnivore community, that promote and market salts of any kind, Himalaya salt, pink salt,
Right.
rock salt, whatever.
Celtic sea salt.
And I would be very, very critical, and just think logical. If a small children don't want to eat that, if even adults would never put a teaspoon of salt in their mouth, how can you come to the conclusion that it is good for you? If already so small amounts are so toxic and problematic for the body, and your thirst goes up immediately, okay, indicating that it needs to be flushed out very quickly. So and it binds water. It needs to be going out of the system as quickly as possible. So how can someone come to the conclusion that this is healthy? This is for me a mystery until today. But yeah.
That's wild. It's funny because we hear about people salting their water. Yeah, they put a little Celtic sea
Yeah.
salt in.
I have friends in Germany that do that. That they buy big containers of salt
Mhm.
water and then they sip it once in a while. And I ask, why do you only take a small sip? Why don't you drink more?
Yeah, I think in the esoteric biochemistry lens, the word salt is used sort of synonymously with mineral. It's almost a
Yes.
stand-in for silica or iron, etc.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
all
yeah,
get called salt, so there's some confusion there. But you're right, salt does seem to be all the rage in the health community right now,
yeah.
and you're pushing
There
back
are.
on it.
I want to point out there are certain animals that seek salt and they consume it directly. They lick on certain stones or minerals, specifically plant-eating animals. This has never been observed in carnivores, only in plant herbivores. They lick, for instance, horses and other animals.
Deer.
They lick on these kind of minerals and stones, but directly. So they have a natural. Also, humans can crave salt, but again, we don't crave it in the extracted, isolated way. We put it on very small amounts of our food, and now comes a very, very interesting argument why that might be, because human in nature do not do that. It's just our civilized world. Human in nature consume a lot of blood. Almost every natural tribe that I studied consumes raw blood, almost everyone. And raw blood has a very strong, salty taste, okay? And is very, very hydrating and very, very fulfilling, extremely, yeah, it's a very energetic substance. And of course, in modern society where nobody consumes blood, let alone raw food, meat, of course, there can be high cravings for salts because they are missing in the natural compound. And then people try to use rock salt, um, to address this craving. But this is not the natural way to do it, and these people will be penalized by nature for doing that. They will get, symptoms, or they will live shorter lifespans. They will not have the exact fulfillment in terms of food, the satisfaction that somebody who drinks fresh blood would get. Not even close. And this is the difference. How nature. We need to observe how nature works more, and we are way too far away from nature and don't understand why certain cravings exist in our modern world, also in pregnant women and other, people that always have these cravings. Yes, of course, because they never eat the natural foods, so they can only think about food all day long, and always have these attacks of cravings for unhealthy foods, because the body is desperate. It doesn't get what it needs, and nobody knows the solution in the modern world, and so they eat all these salty foods and processed foods, and this is the big problem. If they just ate one fresh piece of liver, they would be satisfied for many hours and not have any side effects from it.
Yeah, well, I think the solution obviously is raw liver, right? We've come upon that. Marvin, uh,
Yeah,
I
not only liver, generally just natural foods which are raw.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I have to tell you, since our last conversation, both Mike and I have been eating more raw meat. I have been preparing steaks, tenderloins, and reserving a portion of it before cooking it to just eat it raw, and increasing the level of the amounts that I'm doing on a daily and weekly basis. And it's really been a fun exploration, and I have found that my appetite for it, and the pleasure I get from eating raw meat has only been increasing with each time I do it. So I appreciate you really opening our eyes and minds to that, and I think that's something that I'll continue to do, because I can feel it. I can feel how good I feel. I taste. It's very nourishing. There's a lot of satisfaction in chewing the raw beef. So appreciate you bringing that to us.
Yeah, glad to hear that from both. And yeah, I like your attitude that you are open minded and that you just try it out yourself, test it out, and you draw your own conclusions from your own experience, which in the end is real knowledge. Just what you can experience yourself is knowledge. Everything else is just a belief, and
Yeah.
this is very important to test things out for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, Marvin. So Marvin, last time we had you on, as we came to the end of the episode, we asked you what your non-negotiables were, your daily habits. But this time around, I want to ask a question related more to nutrition and diet. And I'd like to know what foods or substances do you absolutely will you never put in your body? What are you avoiding?
I would avoid the seed oils, because for several reasons. First of all, they are very, very highly processed, chemically processed. Then they come from a substance, a seed, which most, or if not all, seeds are quite bitter, indicating high amount of toxicity. Of course, the seed is the holy part of the plant. It needs to protect this part, otherwise the plant will never be able to reproduce. So the toxicity on the seed is the highest in any plants. And that's why most natural tribes use seeds and some roots also and leaves to extract the toxins for the weapons, the spears and the arrowhead toxins. And yeah, I would not touch plant oils. And they are, I mean, you can always find alternatives, but the sad truth is that in most modern foods, in most processed foods, if you check the ingredients, you will always find canola oil, palm oil, all these kind of seed oils. And this for me, and here I agree with Dr. Paul Saladino a lot. I disagree with him on quite many things, but here I agree with him that seed oils are a big problem and might be, uh, already a big improvement of health if you leave them out. Yeah.
Got it. So seed oils you absolutely aren't going to eat. You've already mentioned you try to avoid a lot of plants, right?
Yeah, generally I avoid plants that I would not be able to eat in nature. This is very simple to understand. The roots, the leaves, the stems, the flowers, I would not touch them. I eat the fruit flesh because it's very tasty and I can digest it and I have a natural craving for it. And technically, I can find some fruit flesh in nature, so that works with the logical reasoning. But all the other parts of the plant are not made and designed for humans to eat. This is very easy to understand. And other animals can do that. Humans cannot do that, and we don't have a natural instinct. Again, if you test it with small children, newborns, or like very young children, 1 year old, and so on, they will never eat a plant. They will always eat the raw meat without any issue, and the blood and the liver and the brain and everything they will eat, but they will never touch a plant or swallow it. Okay, maybe they put it in the mouth, but then they spit it out. Yeah, if I say plants, I mean all the part beside the fruit flesh. And honey, if you will, honey can be interpreted as both animal food and plant food. Is a mix of both, I would say, but is totally fine. And we crave honey as well. So it's very easy. And this is in our theory at Next Level, our own nutritional theory. This is the main, the primarily rule is how is your instinct reacting to a food? And I mean not adult human that has been indoctrinated. I mostly talk about natural instinct, which can be observed in small children. And then how well is something. Second one is how well is something absorbed by the body.
Yeah, digested.
Digested. This can be measured just by measuring the weight. You eat 1 kilogram of meat, raw. You just measure how much is leaving your body, and you do that every day, and you find out that the amount of the digestibility is very high, over 80-90%. With raw milk, almost 100%. With blood, almost 100%. If you eat any plants, it's very low, lower than 50%. If you eat raw plants, is at 30%, 20%. So you can see the digestibility is very, very different. And the symptoms are the third category in our theory. So the strain on the body, if you eat raw seeds, you will be penalized by nature. You will vomit, you will have diarrhea, you will have pain in the gut, in the stomach, and nobody would do that. At least some natural tribes do that to provoke these symptoms, because they think from a religious point of view or ideologic point of view that this is good for them if they vomit or if they have diarrhea, similar to our modern medicine, to provoke a certain detoxification methods. And some of them also like to experience those hallucination effects and rituals. But as far as small children go, they would never touch those. And so this is what I recommend. Yeah.
Okay. Marvin, one more time for the listener, where's the best place for them to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, so everything what I told you, and much more detail, all the studies, all the scientific reasoning, all the arguments, and the recommendations on how to improve health can be found via our new app, which is new, like a chatbot similar to ChatGPT. You can ask all of these questions and you get direct answers. And this can be found on NEXIQA.com. /en for in English, if you want to check this out. And of course our Telegram channel, which is German, so maybe for the audience might not be the most interesting area to look for information. So rather NEXIQA, our new app, which is available in over 50 languages and contains all of this information. And yeah.
Okay, we'll put the links in the show notes. Marvin Haberland, thank you for joining us again on the Terrain Theory podcast.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Mikey Mom, welcome to the after party in the Pineal Room.
It is good to be back. That was a little bit of a drought we had there.
Yeah, we had banked a bunch of episodes, and I'm shifting the release day. We've been always doing Sunday morning.
Yep.
And midweek is actually a better day to release podcasts. So I'm going to start releasing midweek.
Is that what the data shows?
That's what the data shows. That's the suggestion. So we'll do it and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, but I think Marvin was a good one for you and I to get back into the studio.
I love Marvin.
just not afraid to take dynamite to all those firmly held beliefs.
He's a myth buster for sure.
Yeah, vitamins have never been proven to exist.
And salt is toxic.
And salt is toxic. That's an interesting one. Yeah, and I'm right before he mentioned it, I was thinking like, well, deer salt licks, like you see animals seeking out salt, but he's right. These are all the herbivores.
Mm-hmm. Where they're not getting it through protein and meat.
Through blood.
Through blood. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as I mentioned to him, both you and I have been doing a little bit more raw meat consumption. And how has that been for you?
It's been, there's been no problems.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I've been just putting my toes in the water.
Yeah.
Just a few bites here and there, but every time I talk to Marvin, it makes me want to go deeper. That's for sure. He also dispelled some of the fear around what we'd call maybe the bottom shelf meats, right?
Tunas?
Not just tunas.
Even like conventionally, like
yeah,
grain fed, grade finished beefs.
The stuff that's maybe on a styrofoam tray wrapped in saran wrap at the grocery store, as opposed to the stuff you get right from the farm.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that eating meat is better for you, even if you can't afford the top shelf shit. But also that what he had to say about tuna was fascinating as well.
I know. We've been living at least since like end of middle school or early high school was this transition away from tuna. I used to have tuna fish.
Yeah, you've talked about it a bunch.
Yeah, I used to have tuna salad all the time for lunch, tuna salad sandwiches. And then, that myth gets out. Not a myth, but like high mercury content. And
that
it's a danger.
Yeah.
That narrative gets out there. And then next thing you know, you're not eating it.
Yeah.
And I've slowly started, I had slowly started to reintroduce it because I really enjoy a nice tuna salad. I love tuna. I've always enjoyed the taste of it, and I'll whip up I'll throw a bunch of stuff in there, and it just I could eat that every day.
Sure.
But then in the back of your head, you're like, oh my God,
right.
I'm gonna lose my faculties.
Same thing with you treat yourself to a sushi meal. You're like, oh, should I really be doing this? How much mercury is it? I mean, it's like not in the back of your mind. It's like in the front of your mind.
In the front of your mind. But how nourishing does a piece of fresh or like raw fish?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people say this about sushi, and then they want to temper their comment. They say, oh, I could eat it every day. I could eat sushi every day.
I could eat it every day.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. I think we crave those things.
Yeah.
But we learn to curb that desire because of narratives.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah. Yeah. So is this high mercury content they've discovered, and then just immediately just said we've extracted a lot of mercury out of this tuna in the lab, and therefore we're just going to say immediately it's dangerous. It's high mercury, so stop eating it.
The lab, dude. The lab is just fraught with issues. The more every conversation we have.
Yeah. I've been not pestering, but working on this guy, the raw wild experiment guy, Jonathan, his name is.
The squirrel guy?
Ethically carnivore, yeah. And he is he's gonna come on. I think he's been fielding a lot of invitations now to join podcasts because what he's doing is alarming to many. It's certainly shocking to see him hold up a wild pig's head that's been severed from the body and just rip into it.
Fuck.
Just rip into it. Same thing. I mean, take your pick of roadkill. Take your pick, and he's just ripping into it with his teeth. It's shocking, even for us who have seen our fair share of raw meat consumption. This is the absolute pinnacle. This is the peak. He mentioned in one of his videos that there was I guess it was some sort of experiment done. The liver is like the prized organ. So when lions take down any sort of animal, the liver is the first thing they consume. And they did some sort of experiment. It was observational, I guess, but had a group of dogs witnessing a human consume the liver of a freshly killed whatever. And those dogs' regard for that human went up. They started to see that human as more of like an alpha because it consumed the liver. They recognized that as a alpha move or a leader move.
Dope.
And so it's just interesting that we were having these conversations with Marvin. Marvin's doing a lot of carnivore. This guy's just going straight for the liver in a turkey vulture that's been found on the side of the road.
Wow.
And he seems to be doing quite well. I mean, this guy does not seem to be suffering or sick at all.
Isn't it more in line with what Marvin brought up several times during that conversation with an indigenous style of eating what's available and
It
alive?
is. Alive, like they're gonna slaughter, whether it's a goat or they're gonna hunt something, they're gonna eat that thing right there. That thing is going to be consumed that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those organs in particular are probably consumed raw. I don't
Yeah.
think they're going to be as cooked.
I think you're right. Isn't it? It's funny. It's only. It seems to be only discordant to us because we're watching a guy, like you said, dive into a hog's head or a squirrel in the comfort of his kitchen.
Yes.
But if he was in the jungle,
Yeah.
we'd be like, well, that's just how you roll.
That's
It wouldn't be as strange looking to us. It would still be strange because it's not our culture. It's not what we're used to, but it wouldn't look so bizarre. It looks bizarre because we're seeing like a modern American man eat a raw squirrel in his kitchen.
Yeah. Agreed. No, agreed. Out of context.
Out of
or
context.
in the wrong context.
Yeah.
And all of these conversations too have me shaking my head more furiously at just how removed we are from that source.
Yeah.
Like even if I'm getting fresh cuts from the farm up the hill, that cow had to have been sent off somewhere to be like butchered and processed
Mm-hmm.
and then packaged
Mm-hmm.
and then frozen and now brought back to the freezer. So I have to, I'm buying it after some amount of processing. It's not straight from the kill.
No.
Even that, like how much closer can we get? And that's what this guy Jonathan's doing. Just this thing is still warm. Like it's still warm and he's ripping into it. That's basically as fresh as we need to get, as close to this thing as we need to get to really reap the benefits of this, whatever this vital force is that we're getting from our food.
If you're going to get vital force from food, this seems like the way to do it versus getting vital force from, an ether harvesting cathedral. It seems like that's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Where are you getting your vital force? Now, how does it make you look at your gardening in light of talking to Marvin?
It's a great question. I ate for the first time in a long time. I had kale at the winter hoot. You guys had the kale salads, which looked beautiful. There's some like wonderful ingredients on there, and I ate kale for the first time in a long time, and it didn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel like this is something that I should be eating. Am I gonna back off? I don't know, man. Tomatoes, like I love my tomatoes, and there's so many different applications for it that and then just the herbs alone. Like I don't know. Am I really gonna stop growing basil and cilantro and parsley? I doubt it. I doubt it.
I know. I'm with you. Even the tinctures I make, they're made from like dandelion root and whatnot. He doesn't go near roots, so
doesn't go near roots.
It's really fascinating.
It is. That said, I do want to start doing bees, which will give me the fresh honey. I do want to get chickens, which is going to get me the fresh eggs. And I do see myself continuing down this path where I'm increasing the amount of raw meat that I'm eating. I mean, I did that beef tenderloin. I mean, steak tartare. I did an entire steak tartare and have no problem with it. It tastes delicious. There's a lot of extra ingredients in there that add to the flavor.
Sure.
But just chopped up tenderloin with an egg yolk on top, just give me that and I'm fine. I would do that every day and have no problem.
I think I told you when we spoke about, probably last time we spoke with Marvin, is that for some reason, whenever we're at a fancy restaurant, which is few and far between, and steak tartare's on the menu, I want it. I don't know why that is, but ever since I was pretty young, that's what my instincts told me. Like, you should be eating that.
You should be eating that.
It's not like I grew up with that by any means. It's just when when it's available, there's like no competition. That's the thing I'm ordering. It's weird.
Yeah. It's not weird, is it? It's perfectly normal, perfectly natural.
It's perfect instinct.
Yeah.
Unadulterated.
I did dehydrate some kidney, so I marinated it, dehydrated it, so I got some little kidney bites
Mm-hmm.
that are somewhat dehydrated. But I can't help but think that it's just denatured,
You've ruined it, right?
maybe by dehydrating it. Now I haven't. Now this is like gentle heat. This is not like scorching it, but it is applying heat, changing it. I don't know. What do you think, Mike? Like, should I
I was
just?
thinking about that too. I mean, I dehydrate liver every month or so, and I like to have it in a jar and have my little vacuum sealer thing, so it's pretty shelf stable. But uh, I'm thinking about it more from the quote mineral vitamin side of the equation as opposed to the life force side of the equation.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
maybe room for both, or at least go easy as we transition more towards this.
Yeah.
But it is really fascinating.
Well, yeah. So I mean, a chunk of kidney, for example. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
get it frozen. Okay, that's just
Yeah.
the way it comes. So I put it in the fridge to thaw it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that long. It's not gonna stay in the fridge forever. It's got to be
Right.
consumed,
Right.
and that's a good chunk of kidney. And I'm
Big.
not there yet with kidney where I can just slice off like I don't know. There's a texture thing. Maybe I'll get there.
I think, there's this great quote. Remember that wonderful book, what's it called? Braiding Sweetgrass, Robin
Yeah.
Wall Kimmerer.
Yeah.
And this wasn't in the book, but something else. When I was really into her in that book, I was reading some of her other interviews. She had this great quote. I store my meat in the belly of my brother. And that really resonated with me because we're so obsessed with like shelf life and how do I store this?
Yeah.
But when you're living in more of a tribal community, that's kind of not a problem because it just gets consumed by the group.
Yeah.
And then you have more hands on deck to procure the next meal. It's not it's not this even though we talk about like not living a lone wolf style of existing, we're all lone wolves in our sense. We all have our lonely refrigerators.
Yes.
And we have families, but like very small groups. We're not really like living in larger communities and sharing the burden of existing. We're lone wolfing it to a large degree.
Yeah, this is a good observation. That's correct. So basically we should be doing more frequent hunting and then just more frequent communal dinners to share the hunt.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like you said about the hoot, like you wouldn't normally eat kale, but it was like you could tell that it was like procured locally and lovingly prepared, and it was a communal setting. It's just it changes the energy of the experience.
It did. And it looked beautiful. It was like this beautiful green. Yeah. They did a great job. The folks making the vegetarian burritos, they had the falafel.
Veggie Oasis, yeah.
The Veggie Oasis. So they had like the falafel and the goat cheese, sort of falafel goat cheese bean wrap. It's been a long time since I've had a vegetarian like burrito. I'm just not going to do a vegetarian
like a whole
wrap.
meal that's a vegetarian.
Never gonna. It's like where's the meat? But
you're not going to make that for yourself, right?
But it was delicious.
Yeah, they do a great job.
My God, it was delicious. And I had this giant wrap, and like Grayson's ripping off big chunks, and
nice.
Everyone's getting in.
Those folks are health freedom people too.
Are they?
Just to sweeten the deal of your experience. Yeah.
Oh, I wish I had known. I would have had some conversations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're great peeps.
They are great peeps, and they definitely. I was like, I'm gonna file this recipe away because it was delicious.
Yeah, that's become my tradition after the mammal set, and when I get all my gear put away and sort of like take a deep breath and put on some more comfortable shoes. I make my way to Veggie Oasis, and they make me a special plate that's not on the menu. They make me the mic.
The mic, off menu mic.
Off menu mic. There he is again.
There he is. All right, folks, nothing you heard here should be taken as medical advice, as neither Mike nor I are medical experts. Remember that you are light, you are loved, you do not need vitamins. You are your primary health care provider. That, by the way, you do not need vitamins. That's also not medical advice. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.